Yeah, because we're focusing on 23C today, which is the new version of the Oracle database that should be coming out later this year. I'm going to start with the safe harbor so that everybody knows that what we're talking about today is pre-production. It's not released yet, and you can't hold anything we say about the new release against us in case it may not be there, or the feature or functionality may not be there when it's actually released.
I wanted to give you a look at some of my favorite SQL enhancements that 23 should have for us. And so if I can get it to advance the slide, there we go. I picked a half a dozen and then one. So let me quickly dive through these. If we look at BOOLEAN Datatype, we've been needing this for a while. We've coded around it with a lot of if then else's and such. BOOLEAN Datatype, you can use true, false, 1, 0, TF, several other iterations. If you think it's probably generally expected to be true or generally expected to be false, now it will do it. And so you can see I've selected where active. I don't have to say where active equal T or any other of the capabilities. So takes care of that. Next up, select without from. How many times do you say select sysdate from dual? Select hello world from dual. You no longer have to have that from dual in there. Developers will find that cleans up their code quite a bit and returns those values. Numeric strings, function calls, all of that are supported. If not exists or if exists for DDL statements, how many times do you go do an install and you have this whole list of error messages because it tried to create tables that already existed or tried to drop tables that didn't exist? So you can now include if exists or if not exists clauses on those, and your log file after that install will be a lot cleaner, or any of your other activities. One thing I would call out to note, though, is note here, if I created this table if not exists, so the first one it created the table, if I immediately call the same thing again, it still says table created. It doesn't throw the error message because I said created if it doesn't exist. So that may be a little confusing at first, but I think if you look at it later on, you'll see that it makes sense. By the same token, if I do drop the table if it exists, it actually dropped it. I do it again, it still will tell you the table was dropped, because at the end of the day, the table is gone now, even if it was dropped already. So a little bit cleaner on your log files, a little more sensible for your users. Another one of my favorite, this one is probably the top. Column aliases for your group bys and having. Previously, you said something like, first, middle, last is name. You still had to use that in your group by the exact same text. If you changed case or misspelled it, it didn't work. Same for extract year. They can get pretty complicated. And do a having on that. Well, now you can use those aliases, name, group by name, age, group by age, and make your code a little more readable and a lot more robust without having to worry about mistyping something. Next up, multi-value insert statements. This can save a lot of energy as well. I give an example here where I put in 3 different records with one insert statement. Note it will tell me that 3 rows were inserted, and if I select from them, I see the 3 different rows. While this is great on an insert, also think about things like inline tables. You can do a values inline for a select star from an inline set of values as well, and do the same thing. Next up, direct joins. This is another big time saver. How many times do you want to update something and you need values from a totally different set of tables? In this case, we've now added the from and where clauses to an update. So in this case, I'm saying add their raise amount from the reviews table to their salary in their employee table by joining reviews on the empl ID and only giving that raises to the top performers. So another very handy feature that we've added to the 23C. And finally, I said a half a dozen of my favorite ones and some. I'm still torn on this one. We've told you for years, least privileges, don't give them anything they don't absolutely need. But especially in, say, non-prod environments, it's very common to say, I have, in this case, HR is my application schema, and he's got a jillion tables in here. I've listed just a few. And every time I want to add somebody to have access to that schema, all of those tables, I had a bunch of grants to do. Now you can say grant select on any table on schema HR to your user, and they get not only all the tables that are there today, but they also get any tables that you might add to HR schema later. So that's a big time saver and sort of streamlines what those security tables are going to look like. So one more, I'll put it in my list of favorites, but I'm still torn on whether or not it's a great idea. So use with caution. And with that, I will turn it back over to Charles, I believe.